From the PEP Radio Newsroom, it's time for the morning news for November 20th, 2025. These are the stories we are covering at this hour. President Donald Trump signed legislation Wednesday that compels his administration to release files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, bowing to political pressure from his own party after initially resisting those efforts. Trump could have chosen to release many of the files on his own months ago. Democrats have used the Epstein issue, which affects them far more than the Republican Party, in order to try and distract from our amazing victories. Trump said in a social media post as he announced he had signed the bill. Now, the bill requires the Justice Department to release all files and communications related to Epstein, as well as any information about the investigation into his death in a federal prison in 2019 within 30 days. It allows for redactions about Epstein's victims for ongoing federal investigations, but the DOJ cannot withhold information due to embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. Meanwhile, way on the opposite end of the planet, on the frozen edge of the world, staying in practice as a professional musician, takes ingenuity, grit, and a plastic instrument for school children that's guaranteed not to freeze your fingers or your face. Natalie Payne is a French horn player in New Zealand's Navy, who since October has been among 21 military members stationed in Antarctica. There, her melodies drift across the frozen sea from perhaps the most remote practice room on Earth. It's beautiful and very inspiring, Payne told the Associated Press. I'll sit there by the window and I will do my routine and play music in my time off, which is not very often. The story of how she arrived in Antarctica is an unlikely one. Payne grew up in the hot, dry climate of Adelaide, Australia, where she dreamed of visiting the frozen continent as a scientist. She studied music at university instead, putting Antarctica out of her mind. Years later, however, as a musician in New Zealand's Navy, Payne learned members of the country's military were stationed in Antarctica to support the work of scientists. When she asked her instructor, said any military member could win one of the coveted assignments, my eyes lit up and I was like, what? Even a musician, Payne said? He's like, heck yeah. Well, why not? Well, her dream was revived, but enacting it wasn't simple. It took 4 years of unsuccessful applications before Payne landed a posting as a communications operator. It's a consuming job, worked in 6-day stretches that leave little time for music. Payne monitors radio, phone, email, and other communications traffic at New Zealand's mission at Scott Base, sometimes speaking to people on the ice who haven't heard other voices for weeks. In whatever window she can find, Payne squeezes in scales and mouth exercises, going to the great lengths not to disturb others on round-the-clock shifts. That means slipping out of the main base to a hut built in 1957 under the leadership of explorer Sir Edmund Hillary as New Zealand established its presence in Antarctica. When she plays by the window watching seals on the ice, Payne finds new musical motifs bubbling up. There's so much beauty, and it's not tame either. It's this wild, untamed beauty of the land around you and the animals as well, she said. It's just so overwhelming, spiritually, emotionally, physically, sometimes as well. Turning to news from home, over 1,000 pounds of meth were seized and 15 people charged in a Colorado drug investigation. Federal authorities said Wednesday they seized more than a half ton of methamphetamine and indicted 15 people following a 2-year investigation that disrupted a drug trafficking organization from Mexico operating in Colorado. 11 people have been arrested, but 4 others, including the organization's alleged leader, remain free and are believed to be in Mexico, the Colorado U.S. Attorney's Office announced. Dave Oleski, Drug Enforcement Administration Special Agent in charge, said in a news conference that the investigation revealed ties to elements in Mexico involving the Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels. Oleski did not take questions, and an agency spokesperson declined to elaborate. Sinaloa and Jalisco, notorious cartels whose names are derived from the Mexican states where they originated, were among 8 Latin American crime groups recently designated as foreign terrorist organizations by the Trump administration. And in Pennsylvania news, the U.S. Department of Energy said Tuesday that it will loan $1 billion to help finance the restart of the nuclear power plant on Pennsylvania's 3 Mile Island that is under contract to supply power to data centers for tech giant Microsoft. The loan is in line with the priorities of President Trump's administration, including bolstering nuclear power and artificial intelligence. For Constellation Energy, which owns 3 Mile Island's lone functioning nuclear power reactor, the federal loan will lower its financing cost to get the mothball plant up and running again. The 835 megawatt reactor can power the equivalent of approximately 800,000 homes, the Department of Energy said. The reactor has been out of operation for 5 years when Constellation Energy announced last year that it would spend $1.6 billion to restart it under a 20-year agreement with Microsoft to buy the power for its data centers. Constellation Energy renamed the functioning unit the Crane Clean Energy Center as it works to restore equipment, including the turbine, generator, main power transformer, and cooling and control systems. It hopes to bring the plant back online in 2027. That's the news at this hour. If you are watching our news videos on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel. PEP Radio is available on the Live 365 app, the PEP Radio page at paequality.com, Roku, and Alexa. Coming up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio.